Hi everyone, welcome to the introduction of 8x8 Automation Builder. In this video, we will show how you can easily leverage the feature to simplify your business communication workflows across channels such as SMS and chat apps. The Automation Builder allows you to create workflow definitions which starts with a trigger or an event, for example, receiving an inquiry message from a customer. The trigger that informs a set of steps which can either be conditions or actions. Now, let's begin with a quick run through on what you can see on the dashboard. At the top row, you will see the number of allowed workflow executions based on the plan that you are subscribed to, the number that you have executed so far, as well as what you got remaining. There are a number of filter options available. You've got date range. You can select based on whether the workflow is enabled or disabled, as well as based on the trigger type, namely SMS, chat apps, or HTTP requests. You can search for a workflow using the definition name. For example, I'll search for chat app, and you will see the filtered results showing. Right from the dashboard, you are able to enable or disable a workflow. You also see the option to download the workflow as a JSON file or delete the workflow from the dashboard. Next, let's get on to creating a workflow. On the dashboard, you will find a number of templates which you can use to get a quick start to creating your very first automation workflow. Let's begin with a simple example, auto reply chat apps. In every template, we've created a sequence of triggers, conditions, or actions, which you can easily edit or switch out. And this template here contains just one trigger and one step. You can start by renaming the workflow so that it makes sense to you, and I'm going to rename this to auto reply WhatsApp. The trigger here is a chat apps trigger, specifically inbound chat apps, which means that this specific workflow will start every time you receive an incoming message on WhatsApp, Viber, or any of the connected chat apps you've got. Next, remember to select the sub account and update your trigger. In this simple two-step workflow, the next step is a chat apps action. What this means that following an inbound chat apps message, the workflow will send a new chat apps message to a defined phone number, or what we call a destination. The Automation Builder allows you to easily configure various components in each step, starting from the name. So for easy reference, I am going to rename this step to WhatsApp reply. And of course, remember to select a sub account, and I'll do WhatsApp again. Now, let's talk about variables. As what we are building here is a blueprint. In order to trigger an auto reply every time you receive a WhatsApp message, you need to keep this workflow dynamic. And you achieve that by using the suitable variables, which are based on information received in the triggers or previous steps. Here, we want to reply the user, and the destination would be a phone number. Instead of entering that single user's phone number, we can make use of the variable user.msisdn, in which the user's phone number will be stored. Next, it's time to compose the message. If you got an existing template, you can go ahead to select one. For the purpose of this tutorial, let's compose a message. Go ahead to enter any text you would like to include in your auto reply, and I'm gonna have this as my reply message. Apply your inputs by updating the steps. Let's not forget to enable the workflow and save it. Awesome! We've successfully created our very first workflow definition using a template. Other than selecting from the available templates, you can create an automation workflow from scratch. If you've been using our automation API, you can go on to upload the JSON file over here. But for the purpose of this tutorial, we will walk you through how you can create a custom automation workflow right from the dashboard. Start by selecting HTTP trigger as the trigger type. Of course, always rename your workflow so that it makes sense to you, and select the sub account. Before we go on to the next steps, here is the endpoint which you can use to start your workflow. And here is the sample code you can use to test after you've completed your workflow creation. Always remember to replace your API key, which you can find under API keys in the menu on the left-hand side. Continuing on with the configuration, under data, you can declare what data you are planning to pass in so that you can easily use it in the remaining steps. Let's say in this workflow, we are only providing a phone number. Simply click on New Data and create a variable. Do update the trigger to save the variable. Now let's add the next step. You can either drag and drop any of the available steps from the left, or you can simply click Add Next Step and select from the list. In this example, we will use Chat App. Let's start by configuring this step. As usual, rename the step so that it makes sense and select the sub account. Since we've declared that we will be passing a phone number in the trigger, we now see it populated as a variable. Now let's drag this variable to the destination field. And what this means is that the chat app message will now be sent to the defined phone number. Let's select a WhatsApp template for this step. Note that this is an existing template that has been submitted and approved by Facebook, and you will not be able to update the message here. Update the step in order to save your inputs. Let's try adding a second step, wait for reply. As in the previous step, we are prompting the user for a reply. This step informs the workflow to wait for a reply. In order to link up the steps, remember to connect them. The usual, rename your step appropriately. As the reply should be from the same user, go on to drag the variable phone number into the from field. As the sub account selected in the previous step is defined as WhatsApp, I will select WhatsApp as the channel here. And we will wait for 1 day, update changes to save your input. You'll see that your input gets reflected on the dashboard right away. The wait for reply step allows you to configure the workflow for cases when the user replied and for cases where the user did not reply. To make that happen, let's add on a branch step as the next one. Branch contains conditions where you can create custom logics. In this example, we are assuming that we have provided numbered options in the message that we have initiated. From the replied branch first, let's check if the user has replied with option 1. Always remember to link up your steps to make sure that they are connected. And of course, rename your step so that it makes sense to you. Next, I will select the condition, check if a value contains a string. And I will go on to drag wait for reply step text as the value to check. And since we are checking if the user has selected option 1, we will insert 1 as the keyword to compare. Go on to update changes to have your inputs reflected. What we've done so far is to check if the user has replied with option 1. Using that, we'll go on to the next step to reply with a thank you message. And we will do that by sending a chat message. So drag the chat message step, connect it up, and the usual, rename it so that it makes sense to you. Over here I will do if reply message. As we are sending the message back to the same user, we will drag phone number as the variable to have under destination. Go on to compose a message, which I will have as thank you for your reply. We will now confirm your appointment. Go on to update the chat app step to have your changes reflected. Now, we've completed the side of the branch for when users reply to your message. Let's continue from the side of the branch when users did not reply. So what we are trying to do here is to resend the original message as a reminder where users did not reply. To achieve that, let's add a step jump to. Link it up to make sure it's connected, and we'll select the step confirmation message, which is the very first step after the trigger. You will see now that it informs you the step type is a chat message. With this jump step, what you're creating essentially, it's a loop where you're sending a reminder to the user every 24 hours until they give a targeted reply. There you have it. We've covered the basics to how you can leverage Automation Builder, which includes using a preview template, creating a workflow from scratch, and leveraging variables and different types of triggers and steps.